Alright, I feel like God is revealing a lot right now, especially as far as the satanic kingdom. If you have a relationship with God, He's showing you what's up with these folks right here. I went to 2 churches yesterday. The first church I was going to prior, right? But I got back and I'm like, this seems like a whole new something. And I feel like God was just revealing to me just how corrupt these people are. And it reminds me of when I was in Chattanooga several years ago. And I showed up to a church, and this dude, the pastor, had a bald head, so I was already skeptical. God tells you not to even shave the sides of your head, so I don't even know why your head is bald in the first place. But yeah, most people don't listen to the Old Testament. And then on top of that, you know, you just look questionable. And your whole speech just sounds questionable. Like, whenever people are like, and Jesus, He just loves you. And I'm not talking about the women, I'm talking about the men. I automatically question. Alright. And so one of the things he brought up was the book of Maccabees. And I said, alright, interesting you're bringing up a book of Maccabees. Is it because I'm here? I don't know. But he said something like, and the Jews who were obedient to God, they left. And the ones that weren't, they stayed. And I said, okay, he is talking to me, because I'm not about to stay in this church. You a whole witch, all right? The ones that didn't really know God, they stayed in the church. And that's why I'm like, okay, this is what we got going on. To a grander scale than what I thought it was, all right? These people are sitting under these witches and these warlocks in these churches. They don't know God. And that's why they stay in these churches. Alright. Now, I saw one of the security guards. He comes in. He's throwing up the devil horns. Well, they do it this way just so they can say, oh, it means I love you. I said, let me look the other direction, because I want nothing to do with this. And although it was a good little, like, Bible study, who knows if they're using divination, you know, to try to teach. So I go upstairs and I'm talking to the security guard, and I notice he does the little Masonic hand sign. I just knew he was just giving T.D. Jakes vibes. Like, T.D. Jakes, all these people can give a smooth word, but they're warlocks behind closed doors, alright? And so I go to the service. I'm actually feeling led to go to the other service at that point. And the pastor gets on stage, and I guess they had ordained an elder. I'm starting to think that these churches are really satanic churches that people are being indoctrinated into, and they're doing rituals and that kind of thing, and this is part of the ritual. I'll save that for later. So they ordain somebody. I'm like, nobody's ordained unless they're ordained by God, period. A piece of paper, none of that matters, alright? But he says, oh, and we got a new goat skin Bible for you. I said everything that I needed to know. This is Esau, this is Edom the goat, alright? I'm starting to think many people know that, in fact. Anyway, I leave. I go to the next church. It's a predominantly black church. But, you know, I feel like with this church, there's more hope than the previous one. Because I wanted to be like, God, judge the pastor and all that. But God was like, no. Because I think what it is God can still bring the pastor out of whatever crap he's in. And I think God's will is to bring these people out of whatever crap they're in. But they want, just like the Pharisees, they want the power, they want the glory, they want the best seats in the congregation. So they do this little thing called little nuggets, and then they pass the mic around. And so I take the mic and I'm like, God wants us to come out of Babylon. You know, He wants us to know Him personally, have a personal relationship. And the pastor auto-corrects it and says, oh, Babylon means bondage. No, Mitzrayim, Egypt means bondage. And although the Israelites were in bondage in Babylon, at the same time, Babylon means confusion. Alright, you should know God for yourself. And you would not be so confused about who God is if you knew God for yourself. Stop listening to what these pastors and these other people are telling you, because they're preaching false doctrines. Now, what's crazy is they had some stupid something, with the graduates. First off, the mortarboard, the cap and the gown, all right, it's a whole Masonic ritual. If people want to sit around and call Christianity a cult, okay, I get it. There's some very cultish things in Christianity. There's some very cultish things in BHI, but the whole world is a cult, all right? You graduate, you take that little tassel, you turn it on the other side. That's a ritual. You're now a part of the Luciferian demonic society. So, we worship what we know. These people worship what they don't know. And then they were talking about, oh, congratulations, higher education, you're moving up. I'm like, I never saw the Messiah congratulate people on having a higher education, all right? All you're doing is proving to me that you're a part of this demonic, satanic, societal system that says, all right, that was almost a poem, you're somehow more holy or righteous or whatever, free, because you have higher education. It's not true. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's that God doesn't send people to school. I think he does, so that he can have people in certain areas. He's calling me to go back to school, actually. But I said, I'm not trying to do that graduation ritual, so I'm looking for schools that don't do that. And I don't see why that every school would do it. Perhaps there's school overseas that don't do it. I don't know. But, yeah. So, I said, this is just weird, And what's funny is I walked out, and I tried to walk back in, and there's some ladies guarding the door, all right? I had asked one of the ladies, oh, can I go back in? And so she said, yeah. So I walked in, and one of them, grabs me real hard, like she was security or something. And she said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going back in. She said, you can't go in right now. You're going to be disruptive. I'm sitting here like, these people are loud. They over here laying hands or whatever. They're just obnoxious in general. And you want to talk about I'm going to be disruptive? I said, ma'am, that's not God. And then she repeated herself. And I said, I was looking for the words, maybe the spirit. And I said again, that's not God. And then the freaking bishop or whoever is looking at me with a smirk on his face, or I don't know. It wasn't a smirk like, haha, look at you. It was more like he wanted to say something or do something, but he was like conflicted type deal. And so I said the same day, man, that's not God. And she said, well, where do you want to go? I said, I just want to go back to my seat. Why you got these security guards at the door? I was so in shambles after that, because I couldn't believe that she grabbed me like she was like I was being arrested or something. It was so peculiar. So I said, and I felt when she grabbed me like she had sucked the energy out of me. Like my back was all twisted and all sorts of stuff, because a lot of these people, they get into these churches and they think that they're doing right because they're doing what pastor says or what church says, but again, they're not knowing God for themselves. That's why the message was, come up out of Babylon and know God for yourself. She's probably excited that she's got some responsibility in the church and that kind of thing, and I could tell she felt bad afterwards. So I don't think it's a complete loss, but I'm just like, bro, y'all need to do something, because we're at the point where if you don't know God for yourself and have a relationship with God for yourself, then when all this stuff hits and your false pastor and your other false church leaders aren't around, you're going to be left by yourself. Many of y'all are going to be taken out. He said 1/3 will go through the fire and 2/3 will die. And they're going to die by the sword. They're going to die by famine. They're going to die in all these different ways. He said, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So regardless, I sat there and I was in there shaking a little bit, because I'm like, that was real weird. I've already had all these issues and situations overseas and that. I don't need somebody to create more issues. So I said, maybe I need to just come up out of these churches.